glide. It's pretty classic.
Okay, we just set all this up.
Uh-huh.
I feel like a cool thing to do would be I'm going to like close my eyes or look over here or something.
Right.
And you play one of them and I don't know which one you're playing. And I try to guess which one you're doing. Okay. Wait, tell me when you're on one versus the other.
All right, so this is one.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the second one?
So.
That sounds more analog to me. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, what do we have here?
So, if you are a progressive rock fan like I am, this instrument right here is very significant between bands like Rush and Genesis, and if you throw in a new wave, the Police as well. This is a first generation Taurus Mark I bass synthesizer. And on top of that is the budget version. Behringer's answer to their part of their, bringing back of cool designs that nobody's been doing for a long time. It's their version of it. It's called the Toro. It's a module based. I use it with MIDI, regular Korg MPK 140 MIDI controllers, which incidentally is the same MIDI controllers that Rush were using live on tour. But basically, switch for switch, knob for knob, it's dead the same. Like, 4 preset buttons, just like on the Taurus. Your glide, decay, and octave switches also here. Filter knob instead of a filter foot fader, and then tune. Your oscillator beat knob, same within the two in the control panel under here. And then, loudness, which is just another volume knob, and then the volume knob up here. So basically, control-wise, it's all the same.
Let's check out how it sounds, yeah?
All right, let's hit a note on the Moog Taurus I. So this is the, venerable, legendary Taurus setting as heard on Rush's song, Xanadu. And then it has the decay switch on, so it's got the long release. Without that on, it's just...
That's nice. I like the big arcade-style buttons.
Yeah, it just makes it a lot easier to deal with, Yeah. So the programmable preset is the first preset on both these units. But then, aside from that, there's just only 3 other fixed presets, which they'll be set that way regardless of what you do. It's Taurus, tuba, and bass. So
that's nice and simple, and you don't necessarily need more than that for bass synth.
Yeah, and you can always do post-processing with pedals or whatever to get a little bit different sounds. But then there's also octave. It goes up an octave. Because in Xanadu, they start on that note, and then it goes to...
This is such an interesting concept, and I'm glad it exists, but there's a part of me that's like, how many people want to play bass with their feet? Like, to your knowledge, how successful is the whole synth foot bass concept been? Like, I know that they keep making versions of this.
It's hard to say as far as how many modern bands have do it. I've only been keeping track of the bands from yesteryear that I've followed for years that I know have made this, legendary piece.
I don't know anybody but Rush.
Yeah, Rush and, Sting from the Police. I think it's just a matter of when you look at those two bands, the Police and Rush, they're 3-piece bands. And there's only so much you can do with 3 people to make sound. So something like this was a big innovation where Geddy and Sting could add another layer of texture to the song, to the music, while they were also doing, vocals and playing the bass guitar, or say Geddy Lee wants to do some cool pads or synth brass on an Oberheim or something, and, he still wants to add that layer of thick bass. You can still do this. But let's hear some other presets while we're at it. So this is the tuba preset. It's funny how they name these things to, be an imitation.
I mean, I get it.
You cut the cutoff down. And then this is the sound that Genesis used in a song, Dance on a Volcano. But yeah, that's the sound that they used for that. And then on the, if you want to play a little bit of that one. And then we'll do bass preset. More synth bassy.
I'm actually quite impressed at how similar they sound.
Yeah.
And I kind of came into this ready to be like, oh, like the vintage one sounds better. Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Kind of independent of this. What can you tell me about this guy?
Basically, it's Behringer's version of the Taurus. It's, comes in at a pretty big fraction of the price.
How much is this guy?
About 300 US. I don't know if that's
Wow.
changed, if it's gone up or down recently or not, but that's how it was when I bought it.
Okay. I have a bunch of questions. First of all, I just want to kind of note that the whole like doing a budget version of a very expensive thing is a bit of a controversial thing in the gear world, but I have openness to it. I think it just comes down to, is it good?
Yes.
This is amazing, but not everybody can have this. So the fact that there is an option out there, I think that's kind of cool.
My reasoning of it as well is I think it's also a great practicality thing, because not everybody, aside from most people not being able to spend $3,000 on a unit like this, it's kind of hard pressed to say if somebody's willing enough to tour with it on a regular basis and have to deal with the aches and pains of vintage synthesizers on the road, where it might need more maintenance than you would like to see while you're in the middle of a tour. And then, God forbid, something goes catastrophically wrong and it just gets completely destroyed. Replacing it isn't going to cost you an arm and a leg. Something like this, which is like comparably $300. It's like, if it goes bad, it doesn't matter. You just buy another one right away.
And aside from that, there's something very, very useful in the module version of this entire idea. Did I ever tell you my kind of journey with the whole foot pedal based synthesis thing?
No, I don't think we've had that discussion.
I had a Taurus III. Did you know that?
Yes, I do remember this.
Yeah. So I got so excited about the idea of playing keyboards with my hands and bass with my feet, and I got a Taurus III around when it came out, actually, I think. And it was cool. It was amazing. It was difficult to take around and all that, but it did sound amazing and it served its purpose. But I ended up feeling like it wasn't all that practical, because all the controls, like they are right here, are at your feet, and I didn't really want to be hitting the filter with my foot and the volume with my foot.
It's a lot to balance with everything else.
I wanted to do it all with my hand.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a foot pedal MIDI controller, and I used a Novation Bass Station 2. And that was like a fourth as expensive as the Taurus III, and was a much better solution for me at the time.
The funny thing is Moog had the foresight to like incorporate that way back in the day, even before the Moog Taurus III. The second version of the Moog Taurus, the Taurus II, was basically a bigger foot pedal controller with a mic pole, then this at the top of it. So it was like a Moog Rogue, pretty much a Moog Rogue module on top of that. But it was like, but the thing is, it's like it's even weirder to carry that around, and it's like you have to set up your keyboard stand in a certain way. Yeah. But they had the foresight to think about that, so you would have hand controls while also being able to work it with your feet.
Yeah.
But let's go to the variable.
Yeah.
preset
Okay. So just to make sure that I got this right, you've got 3 presets. Variable engages all this, where you can actually sound design. Okay. So what do we have in the way of sound design possibilities?
Okay, we got a mix between the 2 oscillators, because this is a 2 oscillator synth. We have the frequency for oscillator 2. We have the loudness contour, which I guess is like the VCA envelope. So you got attack, sustain, and decay. You have the cutoff and resonance for your filter, and then you got your filter section with your cutoff, resonance, which is in this case is emphasis, and then
resonance is emphasis. Yeah, that's actually much more literal.
Yeah, and then same deal, envelope for the filter.
Okay, so it's simple. You like 2 oscillators, ADSR, filter ADSR, and there you go.
Yeah, and then octave. They have an octave switch here. So
it's like everything you need and nothing more, with a big old filter knob and big old arcade buttons that you can hit with your feet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Simple. So is it the exact same options from the Taurus to the Toro?
Yep.
Okay.
And the cool thing is when you go to the variable preset on this, the faders light up, so you can see where all your controls are.
Can this do anything more at all?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
It is literally note for note the similar setup as this.
Wow.
But yeah, let's
it's a controversial move, and Behringer is a controversial company, but I'm kind of impressed.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, if you can buy something that's pretty dang close for $500, and it's like, if you want something that does absolutely more than this for a bass synth and it'll just blow your socks off, get a Moog Minotaur. They're cheap enough. I had one before I had this. And it was just like, you can get a whole plethora of bass sounds and extra controls. I think there was also a built-in arpeggiator and a lot of extra under-the-hood stuff you can access through the plugin and the software that it came with. But for me, I wasn't looking to, to reinvent the wheel in terms of bass sounds and stuff. I was a more vintage guy at heart, and that's why I really prefer this, because it's the bare bones Taurus. They didn't need a lot with how simplistic this was. They made it sound awesome, and it made it work. And it's like, I agree with that sentiment, and that's why I kind of went with that.
Yeah, and I will say that, so I'm impressed by the stuff. It's very cool, but for my purposes, I use it now. I sold all this stuff, but I had an era where I was doing a whole foot bass, synth bass thing in this drums keys duo that I was doing, and the Novation Bass Station 2, which is kind of like, in some ways, your bare bones bread and butter bass synth sound, but you have a little bit more with the LFOs and all that, and just a set of MIDI foot pedals. That was like a very optimal balance that I struck, and I think the foot pedals were like $500. How much is the Bass Station 2?
Bass Station 2 these days is probably around $200 to $300 on the used market, I would think.
Yeah, so that was a cost-efficient and effective way to do what I was trying to do at the time.